Hello and welcome. Well, I think we'd all agree that life is all kinds of crazy busy and consistently unpredictable. And there never ever seems to be enough hours in the day or sufficient amount of calm, peaceful moments that have us feel that life is simply under control. No matter what, time is a finite resource, and we're always left with only 24 hours in a day to squeeze in all of what we have to sort of do in a day, week, and month. Looking after the kids, of course, work, running a house, errands, kids and their hobbies, our to do lists, of course, trying to squeeze in spending time with friends and family, of course, and we've got quality time and date night with our partner. So, it's no wonder that the weeks and the months in our lives fly by so fast. And I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of working smarter and not harder. And I'm a big fan of buying time where I can, and also of less stress. Always, I guess, with a hope of creating more quality and memorable moments in my life. I'm not sure if you're the same. So the question is, now, what is it that can give us freedom, flexibility, and peace of mind? Well, babysitting is always a great option. And no, not palming the kids off to your parents. Of course, this is about giving them a break as well. So the question is, what are the benefits and advantages of babysitting? Well, to help talk to us about that today and to answer so many more questions I have for her on this topic, we welcome our special guest, Tara. Tara, how do I pronounce your surname? I practiced it 3 times before we started. McTeigue.
McTeigue, yes.
I'm
It's a tricky
Mumaco.
one. You're not alone.
Thanks for joining us, Tara. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and as we were just discussing, babysitting is a topic that we have not covered previously before. So I'm very much looking forward to picking your brain on this subject and delivering, I guess,
Great.
all this information to our listeners and
Yep.
viewers. And, whilst I guess we don't have access to our own Mary Poppins that can just fly in on an umbrella and spread
Hmm.
happiness into our lives, many parents have really lost that support village that used to surround and support young families and are meant to, of course.
Correct.
So initially, what was your experience as a parent, I guess, with this predicament that so many modern families face now?
Yeah, so we relocated from Sydney to Gold Coast just before I had my kids, and it became acutely aware and apparent that there was no real support for parents outside of their friends, families, that sort of thing. So I think as a society, we are now, like the past decade, has seen a real erosion of our support network. We're often moving away to chase opportunities, so we're left without those go-to sitters that we usually rely on. So basically, we just sort of thought this is crazy. We live in a world where we have this want of instant gratification. We can pick up our smartphone, get anything we want. You can have movies and TV shows streamed within seconds, your favorite food delivered to your door, but you can't get a sitter on demand. So we thought, well, this is crazy. Obviously, the technology is there; it needs to be facilitated. So we
Yeah.
put pen to paper and got working on a solution.
That's
Mm,
awesome. And,
yeah.
over the last sort of 18 months or so, the world has changed and is continuing to, of course, as we're becoming more averse to germs and viruses, which,
Yep.
is typically rampant in childcare environments. I mean, have you found
Yep.
that there's been an increased interest in babysitting as it allows childcare in a home environment at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with more people working from home now, you've always got the issue of there's usually very long wait lists for childcare, particularly in suburban areas, metro areas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are seeing too that even though the social commitments have somewhat dropped off with the work from home, people sort of want to have their kids around them at home, but they also need that time to do meetings and actually get on with the work. So we're getting a lot more requests for caring home, which is great that
Yeah.
we're able to support that.
That's definitely because, yeah, more parents are
Mm.
continuing to work full time from home, and no doubt
Yes.
parents would be wanting to opt for in-home care and babysitting rather than the rush of having to get the kids out the door and drop the kids off in time, and the drop off and pick up
Yep.
and all of those things with external childcare. And of course, no doubt that there's so many more benefits that the child is actually receiving in a babysitting environment, because they've got one-on-one care rather than the ratios in normal childcare environments, which, depending on the age of the child, can be 1 to 22, 1 to 32 children, depending on the size of the room, all of those, as well. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. And a good majority of our babysitters that are on the Mumaco platform are early childhood educators anyway. So you can see that information when you're wanting to book your sitter, and you can choose them based on that if that's your preference. And you can actually have them deliver those curriculums in your home environment if that's what you wish as well. So they're actually not missing out on that learning.
Yeah. And I guess, daycare centres as well normally have a really strict recess outdoor time schedule, of course. So babysitting, if playing outside is really important to your child, you can always ask your babysitter to let them stay outside for a little bit longer with more outdoor time. So there's so many benefits of babysitting. And as I said earlier on, I've got so many questions. So I just wanted to initially just acknowledge that we published your article titled 5 Things to Consider When Booking a Babysitter. Now, for someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please just tell us overall, what's the article about and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose, leading on from what I said before, how we're losing that village. So in a reliable, like in a perfect world, we'd have a reliable network of friends and family around us to help. But even in those cases where we do have those friends and family, they're often not available to help. So I suppose in those times of need, when you're needing someone in your home to help, it's really good to be prepared, because more often than not, you'll actually be bringing someone new into your home. So a lot of the time, parents that haven't had babysitters in their home before and just not sure what to do, the article was really about educating parents on just the things that they need to consider to make it a smooth transition, bringing these babysitters into your home. So it's a great experience for them, for the babysitter, and for the children.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned before, and I'm quoting you here, that being a parent sometimes feel like you're walking a tightrope, constantly looking ahead to family and work commitments whilst trying to balance the demands of everyday life, which I personally think is a fantastic analogy. Now, your article highlights the key things to consider when booking a babysitter. So I'd like you just to go through some of those that you're happy to share with us now.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, when you're getting a new babysitter into your home, there are a few really key essential things that you need to cover off, which a lot of people don't usually consider. So they're obviously in detail in the article, but to give a brief overview, probably the first one is just cover the essentials, like where things are. These sitters haven't been to your home before. Where's the first aid box? Where's the fire extinguisher? Any sort of food requirements for the kids, bath times, that sort of thing, just so they get a really good understanding of your home, where everything is and how to access it. And I think probably one big thing that, we do in general, but particularly in this environment, is we assume people know what we're thinking. So don't assume that your babysitter knows how your house runs, what needs to be done. You need to communicate all that with them. So every family has their own way of doing things. So I don't assume that they already know that is probably a really important one. Probably is equally important, make them aware of any ground rules. So be firm on this. So you might not allow smoking in your home, no drinking on the job. It might seem obvious to you, but you just don't know. So it's really, you put it out there, you say those things up front. And what are the ground rules? It could be as simple as no shoes in the house or no outside play after 6 p.m. So just making sure they're aware of those ground rules and your expectations. And then I suppose finally, allow the time to do these things. So I would say, if you're getting, in my experience, when I'm getting a new sitter in, I book them for an extra half an hour beforehand to give me the time to go through all those requirements and expectations, familiarize them with your house, with what's required, just so it really makes them comfortable before you walk out the door and they're just left there not really knowing what to do.
So we'll have a link in the show notes, as always, to the article. Anyone that wants to be able to read all of your 5 key points in detail. But I'd love to know, from your perspective, why do you think it's so important for parents to be prepared when booking a babysitter then?
Well, I think it sets a good foundation for them and the babysitter. Like if you just are not prepared, a new person sort of rocks up to your home and you're like, right, see you out the door. it's not going to be a good experience. So they're not going to get to know the kids. They're not going to understand what you need as a family. And most likely you're going to come home and things that you're expecting to be done have not been done. So you really need to set that foundation and set the expectations so that there is a clear line of communication there.
And so what is the legal age to babysit in Australia as well? This is something that I was thinking about, and I don't even know, like, and does it change state to state as well?
So there's actually no legal age to babysit in Australia. So the onus becomes on the parents to make responsible decisions on the safety of their children. At Mumaco, what we do though, we recognise that anyone that is under the age of 18 is recognised in Australia as a child. So we don't allow anyone under the age of 18 to actually be a babysitter on our platform for that requirement. Yeah. And then I suppose forwarding on from that, changes from state to state are really based around working with children checks and the age and circumstance required to get one. So for instance, in Queensland, if you're working with children, and even if you're under 18, you must have a valid working with children check, or blue card as they call it here. But say in New South Wales, you only have to get one if you're over 18 and working with children. So it's good to know those rules and regulations state by state. But as I said, there's with regards to age, there's just no legal requirement here. It's the parents should make responsible decisions.
Yes. So would you suggest it's viable for anyone booking a babysitter to always ensure that the babysitter has a working with children's check? That's something that's vitally critical, I guess.
I think it's one of the most important things. So having a working with children check, and you can check on, every state has their own online system. You can check whether it's valid at that point in time, and that's always current with current police checks. So on the Mumaco platform, there's not one sitter on our platform that doesn't have a working with children check. It's one of the requirements for them to come on board. We value safety above all else. I'm a mum of two, and I use the platform myself, and I want to make sure the people coming into my home have their working with children checks and first aid. So we do that as a safety precaution and to give parents peace of mind.
Is it such? And I've got my own working with children's check, and thankfully I've never had to show it to anyone before. But it's like it's a license that basically just sits in your purse, doesn't it? So would you ask to see the working with children's check in the house?
Yeah. I would. I mean, we do those checks for you at Mumaco. So you can be assured on our platform that we've done that for you. But by all means, if you're wanting to have that second layer, or you're getting someone outside our platform, just ask them to bring it with them. So you're obviously going to be communicating to say, well, can you send me your working with children check details? They can check beforehand. So say in Queensland, there's an online system. You just put in the name, the number on the card, and expiry date. It'll say if it's a valid card or not, and then you can check that off when they come in. But it's just like a credit card, really.
Yes. And then so back to, I guess, from the parents' perspective, do they legally have to provide the babysitter with anything when they've hired them at all, or not? I don't know.
Yeah, so you are legally required to provide home insurance, so home compensation insurance. So this is the case for anyone that's coming into your home. So if you have cleaners coming in, gardeners, plumbers, so it basically covers you if there is an accident or injury to that person whilst they're in their home. So that is a legal requirement. The good news is that it's really cheap. I've seen a lot of sites that offer 2 years cover for like $50. So I think whether it's you're getting it for babysitters or anything, we all have people coming into our homes for all sorts of reasons. I have it, and I think everyone should just have it as a standard.
Yes. So what's the level of insurance called again?
It is called, household workers insurance.
Okay. I just not heard of that before. Okay. And that's something that you could put in with your home and contents insurance, would it be? I don't know.
It's a different policy. So I know like WorkCover Queensland has their own one. You just get on WorkCover Queensland site and they've got one that they do for you. So I would say all the New South Wales WorkCover, or like all the individual state WorkCover sites, would be a good place to start there.
Gotcha.
Because it comes under a workers' compensation insurance. For your own home.
Thanks for clarifying that.
That's okay.
And of course, we're still in the middle of a global pandemic at the moment. So I have to ask the question, of course, is there a babysit COVID policy? And if there is, really, what do we need to know about it?
Yeah, so I suppose we're still living in a very volatile world. The rules and restrictions are changing on a day-to-day, minute-by-minute basis. So there is no COVID babysitting policy per se. So it's really up to you to understand what the current rules and restrictions are in your state, in your location in particular. and just make sure that you're adhering to those. In saying that, though, we're aware that this situation is not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of adding a feature to the app that will actually add a vaccine badge to sitters. So parents will actually be able to see whether their babysitter has the COVID vaccine, so they can make an informed decision on who they're bringing into their home.
Yes, that's a great idea. And with that, then, I mean, do babysitters have rights? Say, for example, that the parents have maybe kindly asked them maybe to wash some dishes or do some light housework or potentially even some cooking and those types of things. I mean, do babysitters have rights with what they can say yes and no to when they have been hired to look after children?
Absolutely. I think it is a fine line. And I think at the end of the day, you're not hiring a cleaner, but I think it's a reasonable request to request things that are in line with what's required as part of that care. So that might be meal prep or making school lunches, helping the kids tidy their room, things like that. But I wouldn't leave a mop and bucket out and ask them to mop the floors and fold loads of washing for me. So
from my toilet.
Again, I know. I mean, wouldn't that be nice that at the end of the day, you hire a cleaner for that? You're hiring a babysitter and you really want them spending the time with your children, not cleaning your house. So if they are, if the kids go to bed early and they're there for a few hours, to say, oh, would you mind maybe doing X, Y, Z? Make it a conversation, not an expectation.
Yeah. So, I mean, what have you, I guess, experienced as the main issues that families sort of encounter when looking for a babysitter initially, when they're actually looking and trying to find, because it is inviting someone, as you mentioned earlier, into your home. So they've got to gel and they've got to be the right fit. So what issues do they generally sort of face finding the right fit?
Yeah, so I think it's just in the instance, it is just finding someone. So someone that's reliable and safe. It becomes quite a burden for parents who are already really busy and to have to take the time to do these things. So if they're having to, like, say, put ads up on Facebook or Gumtree, not only is that not safe, it's not really reliable, and then they have the burden of doing all the legwork. So having to check the blue cards and first aids and all that sort of thing. So that's probably the biggest issue. And then I think the second one is just, I think parents do need to take the lead on the communication here. So you are the hiring party. So make sure that you're just, having that communication open, and then you'll be able to sort out whether there's going to be any issues before the fact. You know, make sure that you're communicating them with voice or text message before they come into your home, so that you can make sure they're the right fit as much as you can.
So in that then, in vetting the right person, what sort of questions should parents then ask their babysitter? Make sure they are the right person.
Yeah, I mean, it always will depend on your needs as a family, but generally a good starting point is how long have you been babysitting for? Get an understanding of their experience, and, you know, it's not just a one-off thing that they're doing. If you need transport, if they're doing school runs, like, do you have reliable transportation? Do you have a valid driver's license? And you can ask the site that as well, just to be safe. And also, do you have any infringements or accidents that have happened recently? Just, you want to make sure that, you know, that it can be a bit of an issue there for some parents. What activities they like to do with the kids. So if you're an outdoorsy family, you want the kids to be active. You don't want them to say they're going to sit there and play video games with them. So just finding out sort of what they like to do. I suppose another one is, how comfortable are they with disciplining and enforcing house rules? You want to make sure that they're firm but fair, and make sure they've got the kids under control based on the expectations of the parent. And I suppose finally, my final one would be, who would you call in case of an emergency? You never know what's going to happen, and you don't want them calling up, say, their mum, for example, in a fluster, not knowing what to do. So setting guidelines, if X, Y, Z happens, I need you to call this person, leave the details for your doctor, or whatever those instructions are, making sure they know who to call.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned about activities. I mean, typically, what activities should a babysitter do with the children when they're looking after them? I mean, is it the responsibility of the parent to provide games and activities, or is it the babysitter's job to do something like that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, parents can provide activities for their children. Obviously, kids have their own activities that they love, and, you know, their room's full of toys and stuff. But I find generally a really good babysitter will often come with ideas, with, I've had one rock up with a bag of toys and activities there. The kids love doing new things. So if they want to keep them engaged as well, it's a really good idea. Maybe bring something new that's age appropriate for the children. So I would say, don't expect a sitter to bring something, but I find that a good one often does, which is a nice little add-on. Yeah, and it shows that they're prepared to play as well, not just sit on their phone and do nothing while the kids watch TV. So I think that's really important that they're being active with those kids during that time.
Yeah. And once again, bringing someone into your home for the first time, I mean, how do parents, I guess, best prepare for that for their children in particular with a new babysitter that they've never met before? So the children have got someone new, a new face and everything else. I mean, how can parents sort
Yep.
of help make that an easy transition as well?
Yeah, I think as I was saying before, I think it's really important to get them in half an hour beforehand. You want to be there with that transitional period. So introduce them to your sitter. You can spend the first 10, 15 minutes going over your expectations and rules, and then you can just spend the last 15 watching how they interact with them. If your children feel comfortable, you can read your children. If they don't feel comfortable, have a chat with them. Hey, what's wrong? What's going on? Just, let's, and try to form activities that actually make them feel comfortable before you leave the house. So I think that 30 minutes is crucial.
Yeah. So with that, what rules, if any, I'm guessing that there would be definitely, but should parents have in place when then inviting the babysitter into their home for the first time? Obviously, if you've got, you're leaving this stranger in your home with your children. So what rules do parents generally put in place?
Well, I think the rules that apply to your babysitter should be the rules that apply to your family from a household perspective. So if you don't like shoes in your house, you let them know, leave their shoes at the door. If you don't want them smoking in your house or around your children, you let them know. There are going to be obviously specific rules that are pertinent just to the babysitter. But I think, if you don't want your kids to say watch YouTube or scary movies, you let them know. So it's just about setting those ground rules that you already have with your children and making sure that the sitter's aware of those.
Yeah. So with that then, what other common issues that parents generally encounter with babysitters have you found?
Yeah, I think the babysitter doesn't know what to do. And I think that comes down to a lack of communication. So, so you might find that you're leaving to do a dinner with friends. So you're leaving at kind of that witching hour, 4:35, 6 o'clock, where you're usually doing baths, bed routine, story time, all that. So if you don't clearly communicate that with your sitter, you could have kids sitting up till 10 o'clock at night when their usual bedtime is 7 o'clock. So that's probably the biggest issue. And again, that comes down to clear communication with parents. Probably the other big issue is just trust, around forming that trust with your sitter. So that's going to come in the way of, I suppose, doing those safety checks to start with, like first aid, blue cards, making sure that they're capable of performing the task. But then again, talking to them beforehand, making sure that you can create a rapport with them. And also read other parents' reviews. I know on our platform, it's mandatory for parents and sitters to provide two-way reviews. So read what other parents are saying and sort of create that trust through other people's experiences as well.
I mean, how common is it generally that parents use a babysitter?
Well, I suppose we're seeing it go up and up with the erosion of sort of support networks, lengthy daycare wait lists, increased social commitments, and so how we're living our lives today. Like there is an increased demand, absolutely, for babysitting. And on top of that, we've got 108 hours outside of standard daycare hours and even more outside of standard school hours. So that's a really long time to go without any help. So people are turning to babysitters as a safe and reliable option for the help that they need to just get some more flexibility in their life.
Yeah. And also that last minute backup as well, I guess, and do you find that parents can have multiple, like different babysitters as well, or generally that they sort of just, I mean, obviously it's a relationship thing. They've got to be able to gel with the family and the children. So, but I mean, how common is it that they have multiple babysitters or not?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they do. And I suppose, you've had your favorites, of course. You'll have your go-tos, and they're always going to be your initial go-to. But often they're not available. They might be sitting for another family, or say your grandparents aren't available. So in those times of need, that's when you probably need to think outside your initial network and get people new into your home. So it really comes down to how much you're pre-planned, whether it's an on-demand need, and if your go-to is available.
As well. And so in your experience then, what has, I guess, prevented families from hiring babysitters before? Is it the fact that these checks and balances haven't been in place, the trust hasn't been in place, or, all of these types of things? Because I guess it's one of those things that if it's a system that works, as we were saying at the start of the chat today, it's all about creating more time and ease and peace of mind and feeling like your life is under control, and just having that extra set of hands that can actually do that, to give us that peace of mind that everybody wants in their life.
Correct.
So what is it that you found that has prevented parents from actually taking that step and trying something new? Because, you know, if they haven't had a babysitter before, they're not going to know how it can help them.
Yeah, correct. I think previously it's been all too hard. Like, I know in past years, before something like Mumaco existed, I would be on websites and downloading resumes of sitters, having to go through them, having to bring them in and interview them and do all that. And it just became easier just to not go out, or divide and conquer. I would go to the event, my husband would stay home with the kids, or vice versa. So it's just been really, they don't know where to find a babysitter. So in the past, so that's probably been what's prevented. I know in my personal experience, that's what's prevented me, is I'm like, it's not worth the effort.
Yes.
So that's what we're trying to do with this platform, is take the effort and the stress away out of booking a sitter. And now it just becomes around letting people know that we're here and we're available to help.
Yes. And I guess one of the most common reasons that people would need a babysitter would be something at short notice, for whatever reason, as a backup. So, I mean, how does the app sort of help overcome those sort of obstacles and those types of things then?
Yeah, so we've set the app up that you can have someone on your door in the hour. So as soon as you do a booking, it sends a notification out to every sitter in the local area, and then anyone that's available, I suppose a little bit like Uber really, anyone that's available, willing to do the work, can apply for the job. You can have up to 10 sitters apply. So you have total control as a parent at all times. You can go through those applications and choose the best fit for your family. And if you're time poor, you'll get that sitter at your door within the hour. They'll only accept it if they're available and able to do it.
That's brilliant. Now, naturally, I guess, go through a recruitment process when scouting for your babysitters. So typically what types of questions do you actually ask them during the interview process, which is just a little bit of insight, of course, having the ability to speak to a founder like someone like you.
Yeah, sure. So our onboarding for the sitters consists of a few components. So first of all, we check that they've got a government issued ID that shows that they're over 18. We check for their blue card, make sure it's valid and current, and also a provide first aid certificate. We have to cite that as well. Only then can they actually be approved sitters on the platform. With regards to training of the sitters, so we actually have a closed group. So within that group on Facebook, we provide training on things like what parents would expect as a new sitter coming into their home, what you should be doing as a babysitter during your time there, things like we've just been talking about, just to try and help make them as prepared as possible to make it a good experience for the parents and for the sitters.
That's awesome. Well, is there anything else you want us to know about the app? I mean, is it a national app? Is it just in certain states and territories? Yeah, how can we access them?
Right now, so we're on Android and Apple stores, just in Southeast Queensland at the moment. We've only launched a couple of months ago. So, you know, it's a really exciting time. We're seeing a huge need and want and download rate, which is great. So it's really good to be helping families. We definitely have plans to expand down the East Coast and then eventually throughout Australia. So look, I think just stay tuned. Follow us on either Facebook or Instagram at Mumaco App, and you'll get keep up to date with updates. And as soon as we're in your area, we'd love to help you guys out.
That's awesome. And look, we've covered a lot on this topic today. I mean, I guess what are the key messages that you want everyone to walk away with from our chat today then?
I think that don't see booking a babysitter as the daunting task that it used to be. I know from past experience, you know, it as I said before, it just becomes all too hard, and you just sort of give up on being able to attend those social events or do what you need to do. So we're here to be able to help you now and open the door to hundreds of local sitters in your area, so you can actually go and have that child-free time you need, whether it's date night, drinks with friends, or just a bit of me time. That's what we're here to help with now.
Thank you so much for your time, Tara. You take care, and all the best of luck with the app. Take care.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.